Sox in the basement.
Before I even start this show, this episode of Sox in the Basement, we're going to talk about an acquisition that is very interesting. You already have listened and mail about it with some strong opinions. Before we even get into Sox in the Basement, I'm going to take this moment to say congratulations to the Brother Rice High School Crusader football team winning their first state championship on Wednesday night, 7A, Class 7A, Illinois State champs. First time since 1981, and as a proud alum, hail our Crusader team. Amazing. Yeah. I love that in modern times, I can just turn on local television and watch that game. I don't have to travel all the way to Northern Illinois to watch it. And I love the fact that like my kid who's a senior over there was also like, we're going to go sledding in the woods before the game because they gave like a half day at school if they wanted to go up there. And then they just had a big party where they watched that on TV. Like, I couldn't even imagine doing that in the 90s when I was going there, but they also weren't that good in the 90s when I was going there. So this was pretty exciting. First time since 1981, 16-0 over St. Rita. By the way, that's the Pope's team. So we always talk about the White Sox are the Pope's team. Rita's the Pope's team. Like, he teaches over there. Like, one of his best buddies is the priest that's over at St. Rita. If the Pope comes to Chicago, he's going to St. Rita at some point when he makes his first papal visit here. Like, he will be at St. Rita. Hopefully, he'll be at the Sox in the Basement studios. We can only hope in doing that. Maybe he could still be, he would be the automatic best guest of the $1,000 guest bounty brought to you by Corky Carey at the Park and the Shadow Ballpark at 33rd and Princeton. Your place for pregame, postgame, in-game, the place during the season where we'll be watching Anthony Kay go out there and pitch now, it seems like, as one of the 5 starters, and we're going to get into him. But get everything they have going on right now in the off-season. It's a great neighborhood pub, and I got the location over 106th and Kedzie, which I know is, not Kedzie, Western, 106th and Western. 106th Kedzie, a completely different place. 106th and Western. It's all decked out in just holiday lights and fun and everything else like that.
Holiday
cheer. See it all at CorkyCarey.com. Obviously, I'm flummoxed. I'm excited. I have a team that won a title. You know, imagine if the White Sox won a title, I wouldn't be able to speak on this show. This is my high school football team. Imagine. And also, I get to claim him not only as an alum, but as a guy who writes a check because I've got a kid that goes there for 4 years to private Catholic high school. Yeah.
There you go. You've got skin in the game for sure. And yes, if the White Sox win the World Series, our show is just going to be 30 minutes of you on video with a smile plastered on your face, unable to speak or move.
Yeah, naked. And the whole show. On YouTube.
Yeah, and you just periodically saying they won.
I'll have something painted on my chest like that. There's like this viral photo from the Rice game where there's this big guy with like the handlebar mustache. And he's got a BR on his chest. That's just a dad. I guarantee that's just a dad who's like, I spent enough money on this. I'm doing this at the game. I love that. See? That's why I get to talk about it. Let's talk about Anthony Kay.
Let's talk about Anthony Kay, a former number 4 prospect of the New York Mets.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I'll start off with the listener mail that we got that I found the most interesting. Joe wrote us through SoxInTheBasement.com. Chris, he didn't even address it to you. I'm sorry, Ed. He just said Chris. It's not meant for you.
It's okay.
Why would the Sox give $12 million for 2 years to a 30-year-old short, pudgy lefty who has bounced around the minors in Japan for the bulk of his last 8 years? This is the best Gets can do with $12 million? No wonder King Jerry doesn't give him more than pocket change. Anthony Kay, the Sox would have been better off replacing Shriven with Michael Kay. Solid. I mean, it's a solid email. I don't know what I think right now about Anthony Kay because of the Eric Fetty effect. Eric Fetty was not a very good pitcher, and then he went and figured something out, and then he came here, and then he was incredibly effective, and then in that second year he kind of fell off. And I kind of have a theory about these guys that go overseas, right? They had pedigree, they have major league experience, they get over there, they get away from the pressure of the majors. They're suddenly, I think they're in competition that's better than AAA. It's like that middle ground between AAA and the majors. They figure something out. They probably get like a new way to throw a pitch or a new pitch that they add in, a new way that they're doing things. It finally clicks for him. It's not like they didn't have pedigree. I mean, what was he? You said he was a fourth Was he a fourth round pick?
No, he was the number 4 prospect at his highest.
He was number 4 prospect. So, I mean, he was at one point a top 5 prospect in a major league organization.
But he was a 29th round pick. So
okay, all right.
Do with that what you will.
All right, but here's the thing. These guys figure it out, and then what I think happens is they get here and they have like a great first year. It's that second year. Does everybody adjust to them? And do they forget what they learned when they were overseas? That's why he gets a 2-year deal. I think he has a really good first year with the White Sox, and if they don't move him, which I don't know if it's guaranteed they move him like how the Fetty thing is, because this is a team that wants wins. The second year he may be pretty pedestrian, but by the second year, you are going to hopefully have several of these guys that are on the cusp of getting to the majors, forcing them out the door. So, I mean, even though it says $12 million, if you get a guy who does something similar to what he did in his last year here in Japan, where he had a 1.80 earned run average and a 0.981 whip over 24 starts. Even if the whip goes up to like 1.15 and the ERA is in the mid twos, and he gives you 20 to 24 starts, that's 10 million of that 12 is really for the first year, and it doesn't matter what he does in year 2. You know, and if the season falls apart in the Sox and they go, we're going to flip him because we know we're not using him next year, or if some of these young guys come up and we're like, we're going to flip him, then he may be flipped in July. So I don't think this is like, oh, we're going for the World Series here, but they saw it work with Fetty. We keep saying we want to trust the Bannister machine, and so I'm not opposed to this deal. I'm kind of happy they got something done with all the needs they have. They got something within the wheelhouse of, we probably need 5 players. I think we've gone over this before. We probably need 5 players: corner outfielder, corner infielder, a starter, and a couple of relievers at minimum. We probably have to go out and do that this offseason when you think about what Getz's comments have been at the GM meetings. And we said probably has about $30 million to work with. We've been kind of like just throwing that number around. We have like some loose math on that. And he just got one player for $6 million a year. He took that $30 million. He needs 5 things. 30 divided by 5 is 6. He paid $6 million a year to this guy. Like, he makes sense for what they're trying to do with a limited budget, at least to me.
Well, and the contract's even better than you guys are making it out to be, because it's really $5 million, and then a $2 million buyout if they don't exercise the mutual option for year 3. It's
this is nothing. This is another deal.
I was about to say that there's no risk on this, because $5 million for, even if you were looking at Anthony Kay as a redemption project arm, as a starter or even as a reliever, which is what he worked as at the end of his major league career before he went over to Japan. But for a starter, for a guy that might have that Eric Fetty bounce back in him, and you know, I'm just going off of what AI online says about it, because I can't get to all of the various articles on it. Some of them aren't loading for whatever reason, probably because I'm getting viruses while I'm trying to read them. But it looks like one of the things he did was he started changing his strategy, pitching more to contact, and working on getting more horizontal break on his curveball, which is a bread and butter pitch. So if that's true, if he's refined his curveball over there and has learned how to pitch to contact as opposed to striking guys out, because he probably doesn't have the stuff. He has a pudgy.
You know, can we stop calling him pudgy? I mean, he's 6 foot. He's 6 foot and 225. I'm 5'10" and 210. I don't feel pudgy. You think I'm pudgy? Am I pudgy?
No.
I mean, then again, he's a lot younger than me. Like, I'm a lot. And he's also 48 compared to other 48-year-olds.
Right.
You see, and he's a kid. Also, I want to correct you. I don't normally get to correct you. You normally correct me.
Oh.
You were right about him being a 29th round pick in 2013, but then he went to college. He actually was drafted by the Mets in 2016 as the 31st overall pick. So he is a first rounder with pedigree who had a hard time getting to the majors, figured something out when he finally got overseas, and out of the up and down of one of those prospects that is just flailing. And if he really has it figured out for the deal that you're describing, that ain't a bad roll of the dice and a sign to make early on before the market has set itself. I mean, Chris Getz could still go out and add another arm, which I would love for him to do, later on this offseason.
Yeah, he could totally go and get, another make good type of guy and spend some money on him. Depending on how the market looks for somebody like, say, Zach Gallen. Okay, just plucking a name out there of a guy that's swung downwards in his career suddenly. But he could also just go and find another Martin Perez, right? He could go and find another guy that is semi-reliable that might cost you closer to $10 million a year. And I'm not saying Perez is the guy, but you get the general idea. Or he could go and add more relievers.
We talked about other weird guys that you could probably go on and grab, like Alex Manoah. Didn't we talk about that recently? We're like, everybody's kind of like not sure about him, but you can take a swing on him later on. There's a lot of pitchers.
Massive redemption project for Manoah.
Right.
Yeah.
You might be able to get Adrian Hauser for about the same amount of money that you just signed this guy for and bring him back.
And if you are walking into the season with a rotation where it's Shane Smith, Davis Martin, and then they're being backed up by Adrian Hauser and Anthony Kay at cheap, really below market value prices, you're right. They become massive trade targets at the deadline again because no one's adding payroll necessarily. They're cheap enough that if 2027, if there's a lockout, teams are going to be looking at that because they're going to sit there and go, right, I don't care if this guy's on my roster, if he's any good. If I lose most of 2027, I'm not getting it handed to me, right? So that's one of the things that's affecting the trade market is control. And if you get an Anthony Kay as another team, as a competitive team who has figured something out, who helps you out down the stretch in 2026, and he's on your books for a mere $5 million the following year, you're happy. If you're Chris Getz and you get a lot out of Anthony Kay this year, and you're going into 2027 with an Anthony Kay as your penciled in as your third or fourth starter, or maybe your fifth starter, you're a very happy guy because he only cost you $5 million. Either way, it's a win. And if the guy absolutely sucks, then you haven't spent a whole lot of money.
By the way, Ed, this whole pudgy thing, I just want to make sure that I make this clear. I've been to the gym recently. I've had my BMI taken. I'm not pudgy. I'm average. Just average for 48 years old. Okay? So I don't like this pudgy talk that the guy is 6'2" and 225 and he's pudgy. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying. It's all I'm saying. For exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Forest. No high-pressure sales. They're not in your kitchen or laying out on your couch doing the Rick James thing. Instead, they are selling you a full-sized window or door that you're seeing inside of their showroom. You can ask questions of the owner. There's an owner on site during installs, so they make sure they do it right. They use all of their own installers, not farming out the work. They've been doing it that way since 1985. The last time that we had a personality that was like unbreakable as a Chicago Bears head coach, right? And we're back at that. Think of how long that's been. All major brands custom made, no stock items for a perfect fit. Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest, a half block east, 159th original. At 6280 159th Street Seymour at WindowDoorOakForest.com. I think that Chris Getz is being frugal early on, plucking somebody that wasn't on anybody's radar when he can to get him in here. I think the idea that he could add another starting pitcher is a very, very viable idea and add more to his bullpen. They seem to think that's something that they want to do. They can add wins if they do it. These guys then become also very flippable when you think of the prediction that a Tanner McDougal could be here this year. When you think about the fact that you have several guys who are starting pitchers that are not named Jonathan Cannon and Sean Burke, that they're hoping to have here at some point during the season. And so where do we find effective pitching that we don't have to spend a lot of money on to take pressure off of rushing guys up here so the team can be competitive because they have now some really good young players on it, and so that we don't have to break the bank on our very small budget on starting pitching that we know we don't need long term, because that's what we're banking on. We're banking on that top end of the rotation to come from the system. So don't break the bank on that, and that we can go out and afford a corner infielder, add some home runs, change order. Like, if that's what the reasoning is, he makes sense to me. And this weekend, I think we're going to see more from the White Sox. Not only a signing, but you were telling me that there's some predictions out there. Luis Robert Jr. may not make it through the winter meetings.
Well, I looking at ESPN, Jeff Passan and Kylie McDonald.
And he's really good at predicting things.
He very much is. put out, who's likely to get traded this offseason, okay? And they do it in advance of the winter meetings. So, nothing's guaranteed to happen at the winter meetings, but this is when the moves really start to get made, right? This is when the teams start shopping guys around. This is when the price tag is set for players, okay? And this is when we come out of the winter meetings next week, as fans, we are going to start hearing stories about, the White Sox will move Luis Robert Jr., but Chris Getz's asking price is too high for the market, right? You'll hear that. That's what we heard last offseason, is that Chris Getz was asking the world. And so this article, the opinion that Passan has and McDaniel has, is that there's a 60% chance, they put percentages on it, a 60% chance that Luis Robert Jr. gets traded, okay? And they're treating it as like that's almost guaranteed to happen. I think the only guy that I saw on here that had a higher one was Brendan Donovan of the Cardinals, who's got a 75% chance of being traded. But the problem is that they're also including some names that I think are far more interesting to teams if they're going to part. Yeah, if they're going to part with the top end prospects, if they're going to pay a big price. Because they've got Wilyer Abreu, who's a Gold Glove right fielder of the Boston Red Sox, still pretty young. They've got Jaron Duran, who is a top-end player, was a 7-WAR player, not this past year, but the year before.
And that's a guy I would love to replace Luis Robert Jr. with. And I think his contract makes far more sense if you're looking for a guy to go out and play center field. I think that's the thing. I think we expect the White Sox to move on from Robert Jr., but they could just keep him, right? If they really do believe him, they could just keep him. It all depends on what Chris Getz actually values him as. If he thinks, after the last couple years, that he can trade him for prospects based off of his really good years that are now several years away. I mean, it's been a while since he was the stud that he was promised to be, and with the injury history. If he actually believes this is a tier 1, top tier, I'm getting like several of your top prospects in your organization that are top 100 prospects on an MLB pipeline, I think he's wrong, and I think that Luis Robert Jr. stays. That's what he's holding out for. If he's able to find player types that they look at and say, he's just got this one little hitch in his giddy up, or he's got this thing here that we want to kind of fix, and these are guys that were good, drafted in a spot where we know they have pedigree, we like them, but they may not be on that list, and he trades for that, and then you get an expert that comes on the show like James Fox or Elijah Evans, and they come on and they go, look, this guy's actually a little bit better than where he's showing up in rankings. That may be what he's able to trade Luis Robert Jr. for. I think, but if it's a big high price tag with these other names out there, I don't see how he does it.
Yeah, or you're looking for a team that has a glut of something, right? That has an excess of something that Chris Getz is looking for. They have too many first basemen. They have too many third basemen. They have too many. Well, if they have too many outfielders, they're not taking on Luis Robert Jr. Maybe they have interesting arms. Okay, that are not as highly ranked as they're not their top prizes, but these are guys that the White Sox look at and go, yeah, but that's rotation and bullpen depth, for the future. And it would be a shame to trade Luis Robert Jr. for a number 3 starter, right? It would be a shame to trade him for a setup guy, something like that. But if there is a way that he can do something along the lines of the Aaron Bummer trade, but maybe with better players coming back, where he is filling multiple spots and he goes quantity over, a high-level prospect, or he goes with this guy is blocked at this team, or this team needs to get rid of this guy because they just don't have any room for him. That's kind of what you're looking at. But because even looking north to Minnesota, they've got Byron Buxton as a 35% chance of getting traded. And Buxton the last 2 years, last year played more games than Robert, and in the past 2 years, even with his injury history, put up a 3.6 WAR, B WAR, and a 4.9 B WAR. Robert was at 1.4 B WAR the last 2 years. So I mean, he's not performed. And if you're a team that's looking at, we can go for Byron Buxton, who's making around $15 million a year for the next few years, or we can get Jaron Duran, or we can get Wilyer Abreu, or pie in the sky Stephen Kwan, or if they're looking for a corner outfielder and they can get Brendan Donovan, who can play both the infield and the outfield, you're looking at a Luis Robert Jr. market that is probably, even though the White Sox would love to trade him and everybody expects him to be traded, you're looking at a market for him that is just the return on it cannot possibly be that high because there's no way a team is going to overpay for him, where if they're going to have to part with guys that are really important to their organization, there's better options. The Red Sox need to move an outfielder. They have a glut. They have too many. Okay, and they're all young, so they're going to move somebody.
Yeah, can we get one of them? I mean, forget trading Robert Jr. for something else. But, do we have anything we can give to the Red Sox? Besides Kyle Teal, because we're not getting it back. Not giving Kyle Teal and Chase.
Not getting Kyle Teal.
Not giving it back. We already made that deal. That deal's over. Don't ask for those guys. I know Red Sox fans want them back. But, don't ask. You're not getting Brady Montgomery back. You're not getting any of that. But, I mean, do we have enough? Do we have something we can move? I would like to move something and bring it. I would love Duran. I would. I mean, maybe that's just me, thinking of his good, ignoring his bad, and just kind of, and maybe it's not the need that we have. But every time you mention his name, I would love to have him on my team.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I would really like to have him on my team.
Even Abreu, who's a Gold Glover, two-time Gold Glover.
Yeah, that would be great too.
Above a 3 WAR the past 2 years. Whichever one. I've this article. They note that the Red Sox are treating Jarren Duran kind of the way the White Sox are treating Luis Robert Jr. They're playing off of his best season, his 7 WAR season, even though he may have been exposed last year as being not, the best player in baseball, but still really, really good. And Luis Robert Jr. has been exposed as maybe not the stud we all thought he was going to be, but still has all the tools. And he's essentially Byron Buxton a few years ago, where Buxton was chronically hurt, but still has,
Yeah, now Buxton is showing what he is. Now Buxton is showing what he is, so that puts him ahead of him as well out in the market.
And he's cheaper.
Exactly. Before we keep going here, just to follow up on what we were talking about at the very beginning, there's an article from Scott Merkin. It looks like a 2-man article here. Thomas Harrigan also contributed to it on MLB.com about the Kay signing. And at the very end of it, and I find it funny, I'm just reading this now after what we just said. I'm reading this now, and this backs up a little bit of what we said. And we always talk about how Merck, has a good pulse. He's got his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the front office. That's why we have him come on Sox and Basement from time to time. The final part of the article says, left-handers Noah Schultz, White Sox number 2 prospect and 40 overall per MLB pipeline, and Hagen Smith, number 5 prospect and 88 overall, will figure into Chicago's rotation at some point in 2026. So if you look at what is the current projected 5-man rotation, is Shane Smith, Davis Martin, Anthony Kay, Sean Burke, and Jonathan Cannon. And now, here we have it. And we've heard Tanner McDougal also mentioned as a possibility of getting here. Right? So this team expects these guys to get here. Continuing with what's at the bottom of this article, but the team lost valuable innings contributed by veterans such as Martin Perez and Adrian Hauser and Aaron Savali, and Kay gives the club quite a bit of upside to fill that void. Look for the White Sox to add another starter to the mix as well as a late inning leverage presence or 2. This is not the only signing, folks. This is not. No. This is right early on before the winter meetings start. Let's bring in somebody with some upside that we could flip on a very cheap deal that we feel like we can get some good out of, where he most likely at least is worth $5 million a year for the next 2 years. And may not even make it those 2 years because he's going to get moved.
Yeah, and Merck mentions Drew Thorpe as well.
Yeah, don't forget about him. He's coming back this year as well. I like Drew Thorpe. I did like him. I think he's very commanding on the mound, and he seems like he goes after people. I don't think we've seen how good he can be as long as his Tommy John surgery went well and he comes back healed and ready to go. And we don't see a fall off from it, but we see a guy who comes back stronger and ready to go. You get Thorpe and Schultz and Hagen Smith showing up here, and possibly Tanner McDougal, with already having Shane Smith, already having Davis Martin, and already having, and now you got Anthony Kay in the mix. Sean Burke and Jonathan Cannon, man, you better come out hot to start the year because you won't be here long.
No, or get used to being Mike Vassell 2.0 and try and find yourself a role in the bullpen.
Yeah, you're guaranteed nothing. You made that point on the last show that we did when I was editing it. I kind of was like, yeah, he's really, that's a really good point to make. They may be in pictures, and people may be talking about them as the 5-man rotation. But they are assured absolutely nothing, those guys. And so they've got to come out and show improvement over a year before where they didn't make it through the year, either one of them. And ended up having to break down the minors.
Not only are they not guaranteed to be starters, they're not guaranteed to be on the roster.
No, especially if as Merck is reporting, they're going to add another guy to the rotation.
Yeah, and David Thorpe rather won't be back maybe at the beginning of the year. No. But if he's a guy that, think about the second half now, flash forward to the second half of the 2026 season, and if you have gotten good innings out of Anthony Kay, with Shane Smith and Davis Martin, all three of those guys, and the two back-end rotation guys have been shuffled around between, a veteran yet to be signed, and then Cannon and Burke, and then eventually Schultz and Smith and McDougal, right? If Thorpe comes back too, there's a lot of guys that at the deadline could end up either being out of a job, in terms of Cannon and Burke, could be moved in terms of Kay and Davis Martin, okay? I don't think they'll move Shane Smith unless he falls on his face this year. And even then, I don't know that they'll move him. So the starting rotation at the beginning of the year is going to look one way, but I guarantee you by the end of 2026, that starting rotation is going to look completely different, and it's going to be the rotation that Chris Getz has in mind for when the White Sox become really competitive. It's going to be the young rotation, the young studs that he wants to have up there. And they're not all going to be number one starters. Someone's going to have to adjust. Someone is going to, not live up to their hype. But that's what you're looking for. Anthony Kay is $5 million to get us by, to get the White Sox rotation by until the end of July. That's all he is. And if you're looking at it as this is the best that Chris Getz can do, that this is all that Chris Getz does with the money he's given. Yeah, he like Merkin said, plucked a guy with upside. Let's see if Anthony Kay really figured something out in Japan. And if he didn't, it's $5 million. Even for Jerry, even for penny pinching Jerry Reinsdorf, $5 million is kind of chump change. So, and it's a movable deal.
That music means the Sox nerd, Dave Marin, is on the line. The nerd puts up all those interesting trivia nuggets and tidbits at the rate. He's been doing it for so long, and he is nice enough to come on Sox in the Basement and do it each and every weekend, so you get bonus stuff right here on this podcast. He's brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience a downtown with real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore. So you may hang out with the mayor, John Agosky, of Lamont on the most recent episode of Lamont Unlocked as we stand next to their 40-foot tall Christmas tree, and he talks about all the holiday fun you can experience. See it all at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Chris, last week it was Chris Murphy. This week, how about a look at another new White Sox acquisition, outfielder Everson Pereira. The native of Canterbury, Venezuela, was acquired from Tampa Bay with second baseman Tanner Murray for pitchers Steven Wilson and Yoanders Gomez on November 18th. The 24-year-old Pereira has slashed 146, 227, and 215 with 2 homers and 18 RBIs in 50 games for the Yankees in 2023 and Rays in 2025. His 2024 campaign was cut short due to right elbow surgery, which sidelined him beginning on June 4th. Both of Pereira's round trippers came for the 2025 Rays. His second bomb was a grand slam on September 19th against Boston at Tampa's Steinbrenner Field. The pitcher who gave up that slam was none other than Chris Murphy, whom the Sox obtained from Boston on November 18th, and is the subject of my November 29th Sox in the Basement segment. While that homer was the highlight of Pereira's brief MLB career, it certainly wasn't his most interesting moment. That came in his debut of August 22nd, 2023, when he made a play that linked him to some familiar, if not legendary names in Yankees history. In that game, Pereira recorded an assist, as did fellow outfielders Harrison Bader and Aaron Judge. This marked the first time 3 different Yankees outfielders had an assist in a game since Ron Kittle, yes, our Ron Kittle, Mike the Hitman Easler, and Hall of Famer Dave Winfield turned the trick on June 19, 1987. With Pereira in left, Bader in center, and Judge in right, that game in August of 2023 marked the first time the Yanks got one assist from each outfield position since Lou Piniella, Rupert Jones, and Reggie Jackson did it on July 27, 1980. As for his splits, Pereira hasn't had enough at-bats in most departments to form much of an opinion on anything. However, there is one area where he had a decent amount of at-bats and did really well. That's hitting with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. In 20 at-bats in this situation, Pereira is slashing .300, .440, and .500 with a homer and 11 RBI. Where will we see Pereira? Well, he has played all 3 outfield positions in his MLB career with 27 contests in left, all with the 2023 Yankees, and 20 in center and 2 in right, all with the 2025 Rays. In 49 games in the outfield, covering 397 and 1/3 innings, Pereira has not made an error while handling 79 chances. In the minors, he played 229 of his 290 games in center field. During that time in the bushes and before, Pereira was highly thought of. He was ranked the number 4 prospect by Baseball America and MLB Pipeline during the 2017 international signing period. He was also ranked in the top 4 prospects in the Yankees chain in 2018, 2022, and 2023. Pereira was also an organizational all-star for the Yankees in 2021 and 2023. If I may, I'm kind of getting Carlos Quentin vibes here. If you recall, the Sox acquired Quentin from Arizona before the 2008 season. Like Pereira, Quentin was a highly touted, power-hitting outfield prospect who didn't get much traction in his first 2 MLB seasons before joining the Sox. Before I get to my zinger, let me remind you I am posting 2025 player reviews, 2025 nuggets, birthday updates, a daily Sox list, and almanac items on Twitter and on my WordPress blog, which you can link to at soxinthebasement.com. My zinger? For listener Phil in Hawaii, who was mentioned on episode number 742 of Sox in the Basement, here are some nuggets on the Sox and the Aloha State. The Sox were the last team to have a minor league affiliate in our 50th state. In 1987, the Hawaiian Islanders closed their 27-year run in the Pacific Coast League as the White Sox AAA affiliate. Familiar names on that team were Darryl Boston, Bobby Thigpen, Ron Karkovice, Ken Williams, and Mike Yastrzemski, the son of Carl and the dad of the Royals outfielder of the same name. The Sox also had their AAA affiliate in Hawaii in 1968. Josh Rojas is the only product of the University of Hawaii to play for the Sox, and both Huffs to play for the Sox, Charlie and Mike, were born in Honolulu. That's it, friends. Probably more than you wanted to know about Pereira, outfield assists, and the state that gave us Don Ho.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.